The email came at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Subject line: exciting changes ahead. I knew before opening it that my 7 years at Cafe Digital were about to end. The message was 3 paragraphs of corporate speak, but the heart of it was simple. They were replacing me with an AI system called CreativeBot Pro. My position as Senior Creative Director was being eliminated. Effective immediately, I sat in my corner office, looking out at the city skyline I'd grown to love during my time here. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd helped design the very AI system that was now taking my job. For months, I trained it, fed it data, taught it to think like me. Cafe Digital's CEO, Paul Eric, had promised it would enhance my work, not replace it. I should have known better. My assistant knocked on my door. "Victor, they want to see you in conference room B." I closed my laptop, straightened my tie, and walked toward what I knew would be my final meeting at Cafe Digital. Conference room B was packed. Paul Eric sat at the head of the table, flanked by HR Director Jane Nadine and Chief Technology Officer Brian Jones. 3 junior executives I barely knew filled the remaining seats. They all avoided eye contact as I entered. "Victor," Paul began with his practiced smile, "thanks for joining us. As you've read in the email, we're moving in an exciting new direction." I stayed quiet, letting him dig his own grave with words. CreativeBot Pro has exceeded all expectations. In testing, it produced campaigns 40% faster than our human teams, with 60% lower costs. The board was impressed. He paused, probably expecting me to congratulate him. I didn't. Nadine jumped in. "We're offering a generous severance package. 6 months' salary, continued health benefits, and glowing references." She slid a folder across the table. "Just need you to sign the non-compete and non-disclosure agreements." I picked up the folder but didn't open it. "When do I leave?" Paul's smile widened. "Today, actually. We've already transitioned your accounts to the AI system. It'll be seamless." Back in my office, I had 30 minutes to pack 10 years of my professional life into cardboard boxes. But I wasn't thinking about personal items. I was thinking about something Paul didn't know. I'd been preparing for this moment for months. You see, I'd seen the writing on the wall back in January when Paul first mentioned cost optimization. I'd watched other companies replace their creative teams with AI. I knew Cafe Digital would try the same thing eventually. So I'd started documenting everything. Every client relationship I'd built. Every successful campaign I'd created. Every piece of intellectual property that came from my brain, not from some algorithm. I'd been quietly copying files, saving emails, and most importantly, building relationships outside the company walls. My phone buzzed. A text from my biggest client, Pinnacle Industries. "Victor, heard through the grapevine about changes at Cafe. Call me when you can. Maxwell Fox, CMO." Maxwell Fox, the man whose account brought in $4.3 million annually to Cafe Digital. The account that kept the lights on and the paychecks coming. I smiled for the first time all day. That evening, I sat in my apartment with a glass of wine and my laptop. The severance package lay unopened on my counter. Instead, I was reviewing the files I'd carefully assembled over the past 6 months. Client contact information, campaign strategies, project timelines, and most importantly, evidence of my contributions to every major success Cafe Digital had achieved. I opened a secure folder labeled Insurance Policy. Inside were dozens of documents proving that the AI system Paul was so proud of had been trained primarily on my work. My campaigns, my strategies, my creative concepts. CreativeBot Pro wasn't just replacing me. It was literally mimicking me. Every successful campaign the AI had produced during testing was based on patterns it learned from analyzing my previous work. Paul thought he was eliminating the human element, but he'd actually just created an expensive copy of me that couldn't think beyond what I'd already taught it. My phone rang. "Victor Walker speaking." "Victor, it's Maxwell from Pinnacle. Got a minute to talk?" Maxwell Fox had been my client for 4 years. We'd grown Pinnacle Industries from a regional manufacturer to a national powerhouse through strategic marketing campaigns that I'd personally designed and executed. Our relationship went beyond business. We trusted each other. Maxwell, good to hear from you. Cut the pleasantries, Victor. What the hell is happening over at Cafe? I got a call today from some kid named Preston saying he'd be handling our account now, backed by some AI system. Kid couldn't even pronounce our product names correctly. I leaned back in my chair. Cafe decided to replace their creative team with artificial intelligence. I'm no longer with the company. Silence on the other end. Then, they fired you? The guy who tripled our market share in 3 years. That's correct. Victor, what are you going to do? I looked at my laptop screen, at the business plan I'd been quietly developing for months. I'm going independent, Maxwell. Starting my own agency. Small, focused, human-driven creativity. When? Soon. Good. When you're ready, call me. Pinnacle's contract with Cafe expires in 2 months. I've got some questions about whether we want to renew. The next morning, I called my lawyer, Stanley Kentucky. No, wait, I mean Stanley Enzo. We'd worked together before when I'd helped other executives navigate employment disputes. Smart, discreet, and aggressive when needed. Victor, heard you left Cafe. What can I do for you? I need you to review my employment contract. Specifically, the non-compete and intellectual property clauses. Planning to compete with your former employer? Planning to reclaim what's mine. I met Stanley at his office that afternoon. He reviewed my Cafe digital employment contract while I explained the situation with CreativeBot Pro. This is interesting, he said, pointing to a clause on page 4. Your contract states that creative concepts you develop become company property, but it also specifies that this applies to work done on company time using company resources. What does that mean? It means if you can prove you developed ideas on your own time, or if you can show the company used your personal creative methods without proper attribution, you might have grounds to challenge their ownership claims. I smiled. How long would it take to set up an LLC? Walker Creative Solutions was officially incorporated on Friday morning. By Friday afternoon, I had business cards, a website, and a virtual office address. By Friday evening, I had my first client meeting scheduled. Maxwell Fox wanted to meet for dinner at his favorite steakhouse downtown. I arrived early, ordered a coffee, and reviewed my presentation one more time. This wasn't just about landing a client. This was about proving that human creativity still mattered in an AI-driven world. Maxwell arrived at exactly 7 p.m., dressed in his usual casual Friday attire. We shook hands and sat down. Victor, I'll be straight with you. Cafe Digital called me 3 times this week. Paul Eric personally assured me that their AI system would deliver better results at lower costs. He offered to cut our fees by 20%. My stomach tightened. What did you tell him? I told him I'd think about it. But between you and me, their AI-generated presentation looked like recycled garbage. Generic, soulless, and completely wrong for our brand voice. Maxwell, what if I told you that the AI system was trained entirely on campaigns I created for clients like you? His eyebrow raised. I'd say that's interesting. Tell me more. Over dinner, I explained how CreativeBot Pro worked, how it analyzed thousands of successful campaigns to identify patterns and generate new content, how the majority of those successful campaigns in its training data were mine, how Paul had essentially created an expensive Victor Walker simulator. So when their AI creates a campaign for Pinnacle, Maxwell said, cutting his steak, it's really just copying strategies you already developed? Exactly. But without understanding why those strategies worked or how to adapt them to changing market conditions. Maxwell nodded slowly. And you can do better because I understand your business, your customers, and your challenges. The AI knows what worked before, but I know what will work next. I pulled out my tablet and showed him a campaign mock-up I'd created specifically for Pinnacle's upcoming product launch. It incorporated everything I knew about their brand, their market, and their goals, but with fresh creative elements that no AI could generate because they were based on insights from conversations Maxwell and I had shared over the years. Maxwell studied the presentation for several minutes. This is exactly what we need. How much? Half of what you're paying Cafe, with performance bonuses tied to measurable results. When can you start? Monday morning, I was officially in business. My first task was setting up operations in a small co-working space downtown. Nothing fancy, but professional enough for client meetings. My second task was more sensitive, reaching out to other former Cafe Digital clients. I'd worked on over 60 accounts during my 10 years at the company. Many of those relationships extended beyond the typical agency-client dynamic. I'd attended weddings, celebrated promotions, and built genuine friendships with the people behind the businesses. My approach was careful and ethical. I didn't bash Cafe Digital or actively poach clients. Instead, I simply let people know I was available for freelance projects and consulting work. If they were happy with Cafe's AI-powered service, great. If they had concerns, they knew where to find me. By Wednesday, I had 3 consulting inquiries and 2 potential clients interested in switching agencies. By Friday, I had my second official client, Riverside Manufacturing, a mid-sized company that had grown uncomfortable with Cafe's increasingly automated approach to their account. But the real prize was still Pinnacle Industries, and their contract with Cafe didn't expire for 6 more weeks. Paul Eric called me the following Tuesday. I was at my new office, reviewing campaign materials for Riverside Manufacturing, when my phone rang. Victor, Paul here. How are you settling into retirement? I bit back my first response. I'm keeping busy, Paul. What can I do for you? Well, we've had some interesting conversations with mutual contacts lately. Maxwell Fox at Pinnacle mentioned you're doing some freelance work. That's correct. Victor, I need to remind you about the non-compete agreement you signed. It specifically prohibits soliciting Cafe Digital clients for a period of 12 months. I leaned back in my chair. Paul, I haven't solicited anyone, but I can't control who calls me for advice. Advice about what? Creative strategy, campaign development, the kind of human insights your AI system can't provide. Silence on the other end. Then, Victor, I'd hate for this to get messy. We parted on good terms. Let's keep it that way. Absolutely, Paul. I have no interest in making things messy. I'm just focused on serving my clients' needs. That afternoon, I received an email from Cafe Digital's legal department. They were formally reminding me of my contractual obligations and warning against any activities that might violate the non-compete agreement. The tone was professional but threatening. I forwarded the email to Stanley, my lawyer, and called him an hour later. They're getting nervous, he said, which means you're doing something right. Can they actually stop me from working with former clients? Not if those clients approach you independently. And especially not if you can demonstrate that Cafe is using your intellectual property without proper attribution. What do you mean? Victor, you mentioned that their AI system was trained on your work. Do you have any proof of that? I smiled. Stanley, what if I told you I helped design the training protocol and kept copies of everything? I'd say we need to have a longer conversation. Can you come in tomorrow? That evening, I spent 3 hours organizing the documentation I'd collected over the past year. Email chains discussing CreativeBot Pro's development. Technical specifications showing how the AI analyzed my previous campaigns. Training datasets that included dozens of my creative briefs and strategy documents. Stanley's law office occupied the entire 15th floor of a downtown high-rise. His conference room overlooked the city, including the Cafe Digital building 6 blocks away. I spread my documents across the mahogany table while he reviewed each piece carefully. This is incredible, Victor. You basically have proof that Cafe Digital's AI system is built on your intellectual property. Can we do anything with that? Potentially, yes. If we can prove that the AI's successful outputs are derivative of your original work, we might have grounds for an intellectual property claim. He pointed to a technical document I'd brought. This training protocol shows that 73% of the AI's creative writing samples came from campaigns you personally developed. That's not coincidence. That's systematic copying. What would that mean in practical terms? It could mean that every campaign their AI produces using your creative patterns is potentially infringing on your intellectual property rights. At minimum, it gives us leverage. Leverage for what? Stanley smiled. for getting Cafe Digital to release you from that non-compete agreement, and possibly for getting you compensation for the unauthorized use of your creative work. While Stanley prepared our legal strategy, I focused on building my business. Pinnacle Industries was moving forward with their product launch campaign, and the results were already exceeding expectations. Their initial market testing showed 34% higher engagement rates compared to their previous Cafe Digital campaigns. Maxwell Fox called me with the good news. "Victor, whatever you're doing is working. Our focus groups are responding better to this campaign than anything we've done in years. That's because it's designed specifically for your audience, not generated by an algorithm that's trying to please everyone." Speaking of algorithms, Cafe called again yesterday. Paul Eric himself. He seemed pretty concerned about our upcoming contract renewal. "What did you tell him?" "I told him we're evaluating all our options." He offered another 10% discount and threw in some additional services. "Like what?" "Social media management, email marketing automation, and something called predictive content optimization." I laughed. "Maxwell, you know what predictive content optimization is? It's their AI system trying to guess what will work based on what worked before. It's the creative equivalent of driving by looking in the rearview mirror." "That's what I figured." "Victor, I need to ask you something confidentially." "Shoot. If we don't renew with Cafe, can you handle our entire account? Not just the product launch, but everything." Handling Pinnacle's entire account would mean taking on a $4.3 million annual contract. It would also mean hiring staff, expanding my office space, and essentially building a real agency instead of a freelance operation. It was exciting and terrifying at the same time. But before I could commit to anything that large, I needed to resolve the legal situation with Cafe Digital. Stanley had been working on our strategy, and we had a meeting scheduled for Thursday morning to discuss our options. I spent Wednesday evening running financial projections. Could I deliver the same quality of service that Cafe had provided, but at a lower cost and with better results? The numbers looked promising, but it would require careful planning and the right team. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Victor, this is Amanda from Cafe Digital. Can we talk privately? It's important." Amanda Albert was Cafe's head of account management. We'd worked together on several campaigns, and she'd always been professional and straightforward. But why was she contacting me directly? I texted back, "Sure. Coffee tomorrow at 10 a.m.? Metro Cafe on 5th Street. Perfect. See you there." Amanda arrived at Metro Cafe looking nervous. She ordered a large coffee and sat down across from me, glancing around as if she expected Paul Eric to emerge from behind a potted plant. "Victor, what I'm about to tell you needs to stay between us. Of course, Cafe Digital is in trouble. Bigger trouble than anyone realizes." She pulled out her phone and showed me a screenshot of an internal report. CreativeBot Pro isn't performing as advertised. Client satisfaction scores have dropped 28% since implementation. 3 major accounts have already expressed concerns about campaign quality. Which accounts? Custerman Industries, Smart Motors, and Coastal Development Group. All of them are asking for human oversight on their campaigns. I leaned forward. "Amanda, why are you telling me this?" "Because Paul is panicking. He's been pushing the AI system harder, trying to make it produce better results, but it's not working. The campaigns are getting more generic, not more creative." She sipped her coffee and continued. "Yesterday, he called an emergency meeting. He wants the development team to retrain the AI using more data from your old campaigns. Specifically, he wants them to analyze your work patterns and incorporate them into the system's core algorithms." "That's interesting." "Victor, here's the thing. I was in that meeting when you helped design the original training protocol. I know you kept copies of everything. Paul doesn't realize that, but I do." Amanda's revelation changed everything. If Cafe Digital was planning to further exploit my creative work without permission, we had grounds for immediate legal action. I texted Stanley from the cafe. "Emergency meeting needed. Major development." After Amanda left, I sat in the cafe for another hour, thinking through the implications. Cafe wasn't just struggling with their AI system. They were actively trying to steal more of my intellectual property to fix it. Paul Eric had made a critical error. He'd assumed that firing me would solve his problems, when in reality, it had just revealed how dependent his company was on my creative expertise. My phone rang. It was Maxwell Fox again. "Victor, something weird just happened. Cafe Digital called and offered to match any proposal you've given us, dollar for dollar. They also said they'd assign their senior creative team to our account personally." "What senior creative team?" That's what I asked. Turns out their senior creative team is Paul Eric and 2 junior associates who've been with the company for less than 6 months. I almost laughed. "Maxwell, what did you tell them?" "I told them we'd make our decision by Friday." "Victor, I need to know. Can you handle our full account or not?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. "But I need you to do me a favor." "What's that?" "Wait until Monday to make UT planning to expand that usage to improve their failing AI system." When Stanley arrived, I explained Amanda's revelation and showed him the internal report she'd shared. "This is perfect," he said, reviewing the document. "It proves that their AI system is underperforming and that they're specifically targeting your creative work to fix it. What are our options? We can file for an immediate cease and desist order, prohibiting them from using any of your creative work in their AI system. We can also demand compensation for the unauthorized use that's already occurred." "How much compensation are we talking about?" Stanley pulled out a calculator. "If we can prove that their AI system's successful outputs are primarily based on your work, and if we can demonstrate the financial value of those outputs to Cafe's business, we could be looking at significant damages." Define significant. "Potentially millions of dollars." "Victor, their AI system is essentially a copy of your creative process. Every client they serve using that system is benefiting from your intellectual property." "What's our next step?" "We will file the paperwork tomorrow morning. By afternoon, Cafe Digital will receive formal notice of our intellectual property claims." Friday morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Stanley's legal filing had been submitted at 9 a.m., and apparently, Paul Eric had received the news shortly after. The messages ranged from confused to angry to desperate. Paul himself had called 6 times, leaving increasingly frantic voicemails. The most recent one, left at 2:47 a.m., was particularly telling. "Victor, we need to talk immediately. This legal nonsense isn't helping anyone. Call me back as soon as you get this message. We can work something out." I ignored the messages and focused on preparing for my meeting with Maxwell Fox. At 10 a.m., we were scheduled to finalize Pinnacle Industries' decision about their Cafe Digital contract renewal. Maxwell's office was in a converted warehouse in the industrial district. Pinnacle had grown from a small manufacturing company to a mid-size operation, but Maxwell had kept the original headquarters as a reminder of their humble beginnings. "Victor," he said, greeting me at the door. "I hope you brought good news because I just got off the phone with Paul Eric, and he sounded desperate." "What did he say?" "He offered to cut our fees by 40% and assign himself personally to our account. He also mentioned something about legal issues with former employees and asked if I'd been contacted by anyone making false claims about Cafe's business practices." I smiled. "Maxwell, I've got a better offer." Maxwell's conference room was simple but functional. We sat across from each other at a wooden table while I presented my comprehensive proposal for handling Pinnacle's entire marketing account. "Here's what I can offer," I began, opening my laptop. "Full-service creative and strategic support at 60% of your current Cafe Digital costs. Personal attention from me on every campaign. No AI-generated content unless specifically requested. And performance guarantees tied to measurable business results." Maxwell studied the proposal carefully. "This pricing seems almost too good to be true. How can you offer this level of service at such a low cost?" "Because I don't have Cafe's overhead. No expensive office lease, no layers of management, no AI system licensing fees. Just human creativity and strategic thinking." "What about the staff? Can you handle our volume of work?" I'm partnering with 3 freelance specialists I've worked with for years. Combined, we have more experience in your industry than Café's entire current team. Maxwell leaned back in his chair. Victor, I'm going to be honest with you. We've been happy with the campaign you've developed for our product launch. The market response has been exceptional. But switching agencies is a big decision. I understand. What would help you feel more confident about the transition? Proof that you can deliver consistently, not just on special projects. I opened another file on my laptop. Maxwell, what if I showed you exactly why Café's AI system has been underperforming for their other clients? I spent the next 30 minutes explaining how CreativeBot Pro worked, using non-confidential examples to illustrate its limitations. I showed Maxwell how AI-generated campaigns lacked the nuanced understanding of Maxwell psychology that drives real business results. The problem with artificial intelligence in creative work, I explained, is that it can only recombine existing ideas. It can't create truly original concepts or adapt to unexpected market changes. Maxwell nodded. We've seen that with Café's recent work. Everything feels generic, like they're using the same template for every client. That's because they essentially are. The AI system identifies patterns in successful campaigns and tries to replicate them, but it doesn't understand why those patterns worked in specific contexts. I clicked to the next slide. Here's the difference. When I develop a campaign for Pinnacle, I'm thinking about your unique market position, your customer's specific needs, and your competitive advantages. The AI is just trying to match your project to similar projects in its database. Show me an example. I pulled up 2 campaign mockups I'd created, one using the same approach Café's AI would likely take, and one using my human-centered strategy. The difference was immediately obvious. The AI version is technically competent but emotionally flat, Maxwell observed. Your version feels like it was created specifically for our brand. Because it was. Maxwell closed my laptop and extended his hand. Victor, you've got the account. Monday morning brought a flurry of activity. Maxwell Fox officially notified Café Digital that Pinnacle Industries would not be renewing their contract. Within an hour, my phone was ringing. Victor, this is Paul. We need to talk immediately. Good morning, Paul. What can I do for you? You know exactly what you can do. Drop this ridiculous legal action and stop interfering with our client relationships. Paul, I haven't interfered with anything. Pinnacle Industries made their own decision based on their business needs. Bullshit, Victor. You've been actively soliciting our clients using confidential information you stole from the company. I kept my voice calm. Paul, I haven't stolen anything. But if you'd like to discuss intellectual property theft, we should probably include our lawyers in the conversation. Silence on the other end. Then, what do you want? What do I want? To make this go away. The legal action, the client poaching, all of it. What's your price? I looked out the window of my small office, watching the morning commuters heading to their corporate jobs. 6 months ago, I would have been one of them, walking into Café Digital's sleek headquarters to spend another day training the AI system that would eventually replace me. Paul, my price is simple. I want Café Digital to stop using my creative work to train their AI system. I want compensation for the intellectual property you've already used. And I want you to release me from the non-compete agreement. And if we do all that, then we can both focus on serving our respective clients. The settlement negotiations took 2 weeks. Stanley handled the legal details while I focused on building Walker Creative Solutions into a real agency. I'd signed 3 more clients since landing Pinnacle Industries, and the workload was becoming unmanageable for a one-person operation. I hired 2 freelance creatives I'd worked with before. Billy Randy, a graphic designer with 15 years of experience, and Mari Stone, a copywriter who specialized in B2B marketing. Both of them had been affected by similar AI-related layoffs at other agencies. It's ironic, Mari said during our first team meeting. They're replacing human creativity with artificial intelligence, but the AI can only work with human-created training data. Billy nodded. And the training data gets stale quickly. Trends change, customers' preferences evolve, but the AI is always looking backward. That's our competitive advantage, I said. We adapt to change in real time because we understand the underlying principles, not just the surface patterns. On Thursday, Stanley called with news about the settlement. Cafe Digital has agreed to your terms, he said. They'll stop using your creative work in their AI training, pay $400,000 in intellectual property damages, and release you from the non-compete agreement. What's the catch? No catch. Paul Eric wants this resolved quickly. Their AI system problems are getting worse, and they can't afford a prolonged legal battle. The settlement was finalized on a Friday afternoon. By Monday morning, I had complete freedom to compete with Cafe Digital and sufficient capital to expand Walker Creative Solutions into a full-service agency. But the real victory came the following week when I received a call from Amanda Albert. Victor, I'm leaving Cafe Digital. Paul laid off half the account management team yesterday. I'm sorry to hear that. Don't be. It's the best thing that could have happened. Victor, I have a proposition for you. Amanda had managed some of Cafe's biggest accounts during her 5 years with the company. She knew their business inside and out, and more importantly, she understood which clients were becoming frustrated with the AI-driven approach. 3 of my former accounts have already called me, she said. Custerman Industries, Smart Motors, and Coastal Development Group. They want to know if I'm available for consulting work. What kind of consulting work? The kind that requires human creativity and strategic thinking. The kind that AI can't deliver. I leaned back in my office chair, thinking about the possibilities. Amanda, what would you say to becoming Walker Creative Solutions Director of Client Strategy? I'd say yes before you finish the sentence. 6 months later, Walker Creative Solutions occupied a full floor of a renovated warehouse in the Arts District. We had 12 employees, 15 active clients, and a reputation for delivering creative solutions that AI systems couldn't match. Our biggest success story was still Pinnacle Industries. Their product launch had exceeded all projections, capturing 23% market share in the first quarter. Maxwell Fox had become our unofficial spokesperson, recommending our services to other business leaders who were frustrated with AI-generated marketing. The difference is obvious, he told a reporter from Marketing Today magazine. AI gives you technically competent work that looks like everything else in the market. Human creativity gives you campaigns that actually connect with Cuz Maxwell heirs. The article featured Walker Creative Solutions prominently, describing us as the anti-AI agency and highlighting our human-centered approach to creative work. Paul Eric called me after the article was published. Congratulations on the press coverage, he said, his voice strained. Thank you, Paul. How are things at Cafe? We're adapting. The AI system is improving with each update. That's good to hear. Victor, I want you to know there are no hard feelings. What happened between us was just business. I agree, Paul. Just business. After we hung up, I walked around our office, watching my team work on campaigns for clients who valued human creativity over artificial efficiency. A year after being replaced by AI, Walker Creative Solutions had grown into one of the city's most successful boutique agencies. We'd won industry awards, attracted top talent, and most importantly, delivered results that our clients couldn't get anywhere else. Cafe Digital, meanwhile, had struggled with their AI-first strategy. I'd heard through industry contacts that they'd lost several major accounts and were quietly scaling back their automation initiatives. Paul Eric had been replaced as CEO by the board of directors, who wanted to return to a more traditional agency model. The final validation came when CreativeBot Pro was discontinued. The official announcement cited evolving market conditions and client preference for human-driven creativity, but everyone in the industry knew the truth. AI couldn't replace the human elements that made great marketing campaigns work. I was reviewing quarterly reports when Mari knocked on my office door. Victor, you've got a call on line 1. Says it's urgent. Who is it? Paul Eric. I picked up the phone, curious about what my former boss might want now. Paul, this is unexpected. Victor, I'll cut straight to the point. Cafe Digital is looking for a new creative director. Someone with experience managing AI integration but who understands the value of human creativity. I almost laughed. Paul, Are you offering me my old job back? I'm offering you a better job. Senior Vice President of Creative Strategy. Your own department, your own budget, and the authority to balance AI tools with human creativity however you see fit. I looked out my office window at the team I'd built, the clients who trusted us, and the business we'd created from nothing. Paul, I appreciate the offer, but I'm exactly where I belong. Victor, we could double your current salary. Money isn't everything, Paul. Some things can't be replaced by artificial intelligence, including job satisfaction. I hung up and returned to my quarterly reports. Walker Creative Solutions was profitable, growing, and making a real difference for our clients. We'd proven that human creativity still mattered in an AI-driven world. Sometimes the best revenge is simply being irreplaceable.